touch my hair wall, and Sergeant Tony Grassi in the uniform. They are really, truly the experts, and I'm blessed to work with such a fine crew in the Vice Division. I'm just going to, real quick, just go over what the Vice Division is, because a lot of people they think it's whether we deal with drugs and prostitution and all that. Well, I'll tell you exactly what we do. Is there a clicker for the, just wing it with him? All right. You can throw up the slide thing, the slide presentation. Anyways, so I've got gambling squad on day shift. I've got a general enforcement on day shift, which is we do prostitution stings and things of that nature. On night shift, I've got a club squad. You see all these nightclubs out here. They call them gentlemen clubs. Well, we all know what they are, strip clubs. And then we have the human trafficking unit as well. The human trafficking unit gets a lot of publicity. It's the big one, but I'd be remiss if I didn't say that the whole division of Vice Division works on human trafficking. Gambling, not so much, but everybody else is working on human trafficking. And like Sarah mentioned, it's the buzzword. It's the big thing. 10, 20 years ago, we had human trafficking. We just didn't know how to identify it. And now that we've got something to talk about, and I have to give credit to that movie Taken, because it got everywhere I go, everybody says, well, it's like Taken, it's like Taken, it's like Taken. There's some cases where we have it like that, but the majority are right here, domestic in Houston. So there is no way I can read that, Tony. So I'm going to try and put some glasses on here. And I'm not going to go into what is human trafficking. I think Sarah already talked about that, but I will tell you some of the things, some statistics that we found out. There's 3 major crimes that everybody makes money on. Drug dealing, which is number 1, human trafficking, which is number 2, and weapons, which is number 3. And I'll tell you right now, human trafficking is probably the number 1 crime that we're going to deal with that makes money. Because I think a lot of, whether it's gang members or other folks are realizing that if I'm a drug dealer and I got, let's say, like a pound, I'm just going to be trying as basic as much, pound of cocaine. Once that cocaine's done, it's out. I've made my money. I'm done. But with a human being, you can get a human being at the age of 14 years old, a young girl, and you can use her, sell her to another person. They'll sell her to another person, and you can use that person 30, 40 years. You make millions off that one individual. So I can make some money here, or I can make money there. Plus, how am I going to get caught? Because I'm driving around in a car. I get pulled over by the police. I can bring the dog out there, whatever. They get the cocaine in there. I'm done. I'm history. I'm arrested. I'm out the door. But a human being, that's my sister. That's my girlfriend. That's a good friend of mine. Most law enforcement won't ask further. And so at that point, hey, have a nice day, you're on your way. So you can see why human trafficking is so lucrative and so easy to get away with. But we're changing all that with our law enforcement agency and other law enforcement agencies. And I'm only going to talk about law enforcement agency and really what we do. We have service providers here and whatnot, so I'm just going to focus on what we do in law enforcement. But right now, and that's a very conservative number at this point, 315,000 victims of human trafficking. That's in Texas alone. About 235,000 of those are labor trafficking. And then 80,000 are, and that's, again, a conservative number, that are minors. And so you're looking at upwards of over $600 million. This is just the state of Texas. I'm not even talking about globally, but then $6.6 billion in the state of Texas alone. You can see why it's such a problem. Within our human trafficking unit, and this is where Sergeant Wall comes in, we have our human trafficking officers, but we have a unit called the Human Trafficking Rescue Alliance. We call it HATRA. And I know the landing is going to be part of that in our next grant cycle for funding. But what it is we get money from the government in order to staff our HATRA unit with law enforcement agencies from Fort Bend, Harris County, Montgomery County. We've got federal, state, and local prosecutors that will come in and work with us. We've got victim rights groups that work with us. We've got, I'm missing a ton of people, but it's all under one roof. So if we get a call in that this woman's being trafficked or we got this person being trafficked, immediately we can go into action and not have to worry about all that bureaucratic red tape, all that nonsense. I got to call this unit, I got to call this organization, I need to call these law enforcement. We can go out there immediately and take care of it and rescue the victim. Because when it comes to human trafficking, time is of the essence. And I'll just let you know a little, real quick story of my guys. We had a woman who came down from Dallas looking for a job. It was over the Christmas holidays. Very difficult trying to find some work. She came with a friend. A friend went back up to Dallas. She decided to stick around. She's at a hotel. Money's running out, but she befriended a guy that says, hey, I'm from Houston anyways. I can hook you up. I know a bunch of people, get you a job. Paid for her hotel room, gave her some clothes, money for that kind of thing. We call that the grooming process. That can take weeks or even months. One thing about traffickers, we found out that they're very patient and very methodical. It'll take a long time to get these women underneath, to manipulate these women to thinking like they do. So he did that with her. Then it became, hey, I'm gonna let you go out on Bissonnet, which I'll explain about Bissonnet in a little bit, but go out there and you're gonna work as a prostitute. She said no, so he beat her, and she had no recourse. He posted her ad on, we have these adult websites where men will get on there and look for these women on these websites and meet up at hotels. So one buyer decided to do that. She was able to use his phone, call her mom. Mom called us. And then we immediately, it was 5 o'clock on a Friday when most of my guys are going home, but they threw up the computers. They got on the computers. They were able to track her down. They were able to find her, set up surveillance on the trafficker, broke in the hotel room, able to rescue her. She broke down sobbing, and we arrested the traffickers. It doesn't always end like that, but I always like to use that story as this just the hard work and dedication of the Vice Division and what we go through every day. Tony, I don't even know where we are on the PowerPoint anymore, so yeah. But I'm going to just talk to you real quick. I don't know, they were talking about we might have some middle schoolers here, and I've got a 12-year-old daughter, so hey, as a single dad, I'm involved in this as well, trying to help our children, so I'm just going to focus on that. Social media is the way these traffickers like to target our individuals, our young. When you're trying to think, okay, well, I can't think like a 13, 14, 15-year-old, but when you were in that age, when you're in high school and middle school, you want to be popular, you want to stand out, you want to be liked by everybody. Well, back then, there was no other way to do that. Now with social media, you get on that Snapchat or that Facebook, and none of the kids get on Facebook anymore. That's old news. They'll get on Kick and some of these other places, and they want to be liked. So you'll see how many likes I got. I got 1,000 friends, or I've got 3,000 likes on a picture. They don't care who those folks are. It's a numbers thing. So with social media, that's a big problem. So these traffickers will get on the social media, and if they send out 100 and 150 friend requests a day, you're going to get one, and that's all they need is one. That's their job. All day long, they're just looking for people women that they can use, young girls, to get up involved in trafficking. So if you get that one young girl that says, yeah, he's my friend, then you start focusing on her. You text her, you take her to these great parties where there's a lot of older people, a lot of money. You buy them Louis Vuitton purses, you buy them shoes. And as a young female, your hormones are racing. You go, this guy really likes me. And that's the thing. They will tell this girl that you are my world. Everything surrounds you. I'm going to take care of you. And then they start isolating from the parents, isolating them from their friends. Nobody can take care of you like I do. You know what? They don't care about you. I care about you. You should be a model, that kind of thing. And remember, you got rebellious teenagers. They listen to what their friends say. They don't want to listen to what the parents say. So with that being said, now they're focused on that, and then you're trying to make the switch from where they're going from that to prostituting. Well, it just comes, hey, we go to a party, you give them drugs, they sleep with somebody, then they've got the guilt and shame. They don't want to come to their parents. They say, oh my God, what have I done? And then this is where we are. So as a parent, social media, first of all, nobody should even have Snapchat as a kid. I'll tell you that right now. You can cancel out Snapchat, you can cancel out Kick. That's the newest one. And you know, the kids always want to be one step ahead of the game. Facebook's old news. Nobody wants to get on Facebook. Not when you're a 13, 14, 15-year-old kid. So they like to look at the new stuff, they get on that. But I mean, these traffickers are everywhere. They're in the malls. I'm not trying to alarm anybody, but I just want you guys to be aware of what's going on out there. I mean, they'll go through the malls and they'll approach young girls that are shopping by themselves. You know, hey, it is what it is. So you just got to monitor your kids' cell phones. There's plenty of apps out there that you can lock down that cell phone. So anything that comes over your child's cell phone, you get to see as well. You got to be nosy. You know, don't be their friend, be their parent. Get involved, see where they're going, look into their diaries and look into their cell phones. It's the only way to protect them. And we've got great parents. We've got young girls that were honor roll students that were in the choir, A+ students that got caught up in it, and some are still out there. And that's just talking to the parents. So it's just one of those things. You do the best thing you can, but you got to put everything in place and put as many safeguards as you can up there. Thanks, Johnny. I'm just going to let that run, so I'm not going to really talk about it. But you know, we're focused on the buyers. They call it the demand side. If you looked at 10, 20 years ago, and you could tell from the old TV shows and the media and things of that nature, where it was, you know, the cops always arrested the women that were like named like Trixie and things like, you know, names like that, and they arrested them for out there. But these women don't want to do this. I don't know any woman in the world that was, you know, woke up and said, look, my job today is I'm going to sleep with 15 men tonight to make money. It's just, there's no way. These women come from homes that there's domestic violence. They come from homes where there was drug use. They come home from single parent homes. I'm not saying, hey, I'm a single parent, so it's not like the single parent is an issue, but when you have two separate homes, you got to be that much more involved, because a lot of the women and the girls that we find, we interview them, the one thing that they always stated was a father figure, a lack of a father figure in their life. So I'm involved in everything my 12-year-old daughter does, just because of that and alone. So you have a lot of that. So we're now focused on the buyers. Chief Acevedo, who's the chief of the Houston Police Department, has been completely supportive of what we do. He's fantastic. And he wants us to focus on the buyers. And he wants us, when we arrest them, he wants their faces up on the Chronicle Flickr page and on the news. And it's public shaming. We've gotten a little pushback on that, but it has helped somewhat. We've had guys whose face have been on that, and they've done these little reviews. And, they say, shame on the Vice Division, shame on Acevedo. It's entrapment, blah, 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 blah. But then at the end he said, I might have a problem. I need to get out of this and save my family. Because we were finding women that were getting beaten and sold out in Bissonnette, and the men would try and pick them up, and they say, please help me. I'm being trafficked. And they'd say, look, I got a family, I got a wife, I got a job, I don't want to get involved. And we were of the opinion like, well, screw it. You are involved by going out here, so we're going to hold you accountable. You get rid of the demand, you'll get rid of the crime. And so, as you can see from that a slide up there, we do a lot of covert and overt operations. We'll go to Bissonnette. Anybody know where Bissonnette is on 59? That is known nationally as the Blade or Bisso, a place to go down there and pick up women that are engaged in prostitution. And we're trying to change that. It's been, 30 plus years that's gone on. But we did a little march with a church down there with Chief Acevedo, and we ran into maybe 5 women out there, and they were oblivious to us. We were in uniform. They could care less. So you have an elementary school out there. You've got businesses out there that are, if I'm dropping my kid off at school and I'm seeing women walk up and down in front of the school, and you've got drug paraphernalia in the front, I sure as heck am not going to want to drop my kid off there. So we're changing that. We're getting out there. We're holding the buyers accountable. We've got a Bissonnette injunction that's coming up. If you read the Chronicle, there's a Chronicle story coming out next week, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, maybe even Thursday, and it starts tomorrow online. It's going to be all about Bistinet, our efforts, the county attorney's efforts, so look at that. I just got flashed the 15-minute sign. But I just want to thank you all for coming. Everybody asked, what can we do to get involved? You're already involved, as Sarah mentioned, by coming here. But if you want to talk to the landing, some of the other folks here tonight, there's plenty of ways to get involved and help us. And anytime you want to come out and see what we're doing operationally wise at the Houston Police Department, you're more than welcome to stop by our human trafficking unit over at the Midwest Patrol Station and other places as well. And then I'm sure you had a question. No, I'll get something with you afterwards. I'll get something afterwards, yeah. Yeah, we'll have a question and I'll get with you and we'll make sure you get something. So that's it. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thanks.
I think we could probably listen to each one of these speakers for the whole time. They're all very interesting. Okay, our next speaker is Erica Raggett with A Second Cup.
Good evening. I'll leave it on for you, Bailey. Good evening. My name's Erica Raggett. I'm the founder and executive director of A Second Cup. And thank you so much for inviting us to be here with you tonight. I know I can speak for all of us when I say that awareness is so important, and ensuring people know about human trafficking and know kind of what to do about it is vital to the work that we do. So thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for having us. Thank you for spending a couple hours listening to our story. So I'm going to talk more about what A Second Cup does, how we got started, why I'm standing here in front of you today. So back in 2010, I was working as a middle school science teacher. I taught 13 and 14-year-olds, and I taught at a school that's a charter school, and it worked in under-resourced communities. 100% of the students in my classrooms were students of color. They were from families of immigrants, a lot of times. They had parents who were working multiple jobs, so as Captain Dale was saying, they were not able to be checking their at the time, Facebook pages and things of that nature. And so that was kind of the situation that I was in. I was going about my life, teaching middle schoolers, surviving middle schoolers was really more like it. And one day I was sitting in church and an organization was there talking about human trafficking, and I was floored. I couldn't believe that, one, I didn't know about it. I had been sitting in this bubble having no idea that this was happening around me, and two, that it was happening at all, imagining that human beings were selling other human beings. I could not imagine that this was happening. I, like many other people, imagined or thought and believed what I learned in school was true, that slavery had ended, that it was over, that after the Civil War and the Emancipation Proclamation, that was something we did not deal with anymore. So I was floored. I was outraged. I was horrified. I sat in my seat just like so angry. And I had this sensation of like, I was so mad I wanted to jump out of my own skin. I was so mad. And I left and I went home and I couldn't stop thinking about it. And one of the things that was so frustrating for me was thinking about the students in my classroom. And as Sarah mentioned, human trafficking can happen in any community. No community is immune, but there are some communities that have a lot more vulnerabilities. And so the students who are sitting in my classroom every single day, they were very vulnerable because of their age, because of the socioeconomic status of their communities, because they had been failed by many school systems, because they had parents who were working multiple jobs and couldn't be, checking their cell phones. They had so many vulnerabilities. And to imagine what it would look like for them to be trafficked, and then what it would look like after trafficking. How could they be expected to thrive in the world? Let alone, get jobs or care for themselves or heal from the trauma that they've been through. And I could not handle that information. I was like, I have to do something. I can't just sit on the sidelines and think, oh, this is really sad. I wish this wasn't happening. I knew that for myself, I couldn't just sit there and do nothing. I had to do something. And so I'm gonna have us flip through multiple slides. So if you wanna click on the slides for me. Next. Next. Sorry, I don't wanna repeat all the information that's been shared with you already. Next. And next. Okay, this has not been talked about yet. So Houston as a hub. I moved to Houston in 2005, a little begrudgingly, but I moved here in 2005, and I did not expect to stay here long. I was like 2 years max, and then I'm out of here. And I fell in love with this city. The people here are so wonderful and so kind, and there are such great things to do. So when I learned that Houston was a major hub of human trafficking, I couldn't believe it. How could this be happening in the city where we have like probably more churches per capita than anywhere? How could this be happening? But there are several reasons why this is true, and one of them is that we're very close to an international border. We have international airports, we have international port. That means that international victims and traffickers can move in and out of our city fairly easily. This is one factor. We have a very diverse labor force, which is one of the most beautiful things I think that is true about our city, is that it's so diverse. Like I can, stroll down the street and hear different languages and see different people of different ethnicities and not even think twice about it. If I was living somewhere else and we kind of all looked the same and spoke with the same accent, someone might stand out and I might question, like, oh, I wonder what that person's story is. I wonder what they're doing here. But in Houston, we really don't think twice. So it enables traffickers and their victims of international origin to kind of just blend in and not really stand out. I-10 is the major route that traffickers take to transport their victims from place to place across the United States. Traffickers like to kind of keep their victims in the dark so they don't know who to go to for help or where to go. They like to keep them kind of disoriented. And I'll pause here to say that trafficking does not require movement. Trafficking can happen to an individual where they were born, where they have lived their whole lives, and they can be a trafficking victim, just as someone who is transported from another country into ours and trafficked here. That's true. But trafficking often involves travel. So those are some of the reasons, but we're also a huge city with lots of things going on here. And anytime people are traveling for larger events, trafficking tends to increase. And so there are lots of factors that just make us ripe for human trafficking to exist here. And so while we have a lovely city with amazing people, we are a place where this happens a lot more than others. Next slide, please. Maybe. That way? That way? Okay, so why should we care about this? We're talking about overwhelming statistics. We're talking about like $150 billion a year being made through labor trafficking. We're talking about 30 million, 40 million people who are trafficked around the world. What in the world can we do about this? How can I even think that my effort is gonna make any kind of difference? And I'll point us to a couple of quotes that I really hold true. The first one is by Margaret Mead, who says, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world, because indeed it is the only thing that ever has." And I think that's so true. Our tiny little efforts build on each other, and they ripple out, and they can really make a difference. And Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. says, "Our lives begin to end the day we are silent about things that matter." This matters. The human lives that are being exploited, they matter. And so when we stop and we're silent about that and we overlook it and we don't want to talk about it because it's ugly and it's disturbing and it's sad and we don't want to think about it, that's when our lives stop mattering, is when we just are silent about it. So we're going to do something. And we're going to talk about what a second cup does, and we're going to talk about what you're going to do. So next slide, please. So I gathered all this information and I was overwhelmed. I got involved with other organizations and I still kept feeling like, I want to do something, I want to do something, I want to do something. So the obvious idea to fighting human trafficking was opening a coffee shop, because coffee changes the world. And that might sound absurd to you, and it sometimes does to me as well. How in the world can a coffee shop fight human trafficking? Well, first off, We are a coffee shop that really focuses on ensuring that the work that we're doing here is not worsening the problem other places. So we serve, as much as we're able, we serve all fair trade ingredients. So our coffee is ethically sourced. We make sure our chocolate is not made by slaves. We make sure that our sugar, we know the sourcing of it. And that holds true for our syrups, that holds true for our muffins and cookies and chocolate and all kinds of things. We ensure that we are not causing the problem other places. We also have merchandise that is either fair trade or made by survivors, which is really, really cool. I mean, imagine like, oh, I'm not wearing the shirt, but I have one of those over in the fellowship hall that is actually like sewn together by survivors and screen printed by survivors. And it's one of my favorite shirts that says "Rise and Fight." So we do that, but we also do three major things, which are really the core of our mission. So if we can get the next slide. The first one is raising awareness. Oh, that's our shop. Isn't it cool? I'm a little biased, but I think it's the coolest shop in Houston. And we serve really good coffee. So one of our the first parts of our mission is to raise awareness. We think that it is vital that people know that human trafficking is happening. And for me, I happen to be lucky enough to be sitting in the right church on the right Sunday to hear about human trafficking. And at the time that we started A Second Cup, that kind of was where people were learning. They happened to be in the right church on the right Sunday, or they had a job that interfaced somehow with human trafficking, and that's how they learned. But the general public as a whole, about 9 years ago, had no idea that human trafficking was happening down the street. We want to make sure that's not true in Houston anymore. We want everyone to know, and we want people to know what they can do about it. So if we can go to the next slide. We have information on our shop walls about human trafficking, so it's just kind of like scratch the surface information about what human trafficking is, the statistics behind it. We have baristas who can answer basic questions about human trafficking, but one of the major things we do is we hold awareness events in our space where people can learn more about the issue. They can learn about the red flags, they can learn about how human trafficking kind of intersects with their lives. We have information about legislation that pertains to human trafficking and how people can contact their legislators. We have panel discussions of law enforcement and what they're doing to fight human trafficking. We've had other organizations come in and talk about the services they provide so that people can gain a deeper understanding of what the issue is. What I love about this is the impact that makes. So we've had a number of individuals who have learned information in our shop, gone in their communities, spotted the red flags, and gotten help for the survivors in their community, or the victims in their community. We've had individuals who have quit their day jobs to become advocates and fight human trafficking as their way of employment. So we had somebody, this is my favorite story. He came to us, gosh, like 7 years ago and started learning about human trafficking. He quit his job here, moved to Cambodia to work with an anti-trafficking group, which is cool enough. But then he came back and volunteered in our shop, learned kind of like what it looked like to work in a coffee shop so that he could take that model back and open a shop in Cambodia to train survivors in this skill. So they didn't have to live that life anymore to make money. They could work in a coffee shop and make money. So that's one of my favorite stories of like how our awareness has come full circle. So that's the awareness piece. We think that it's vital that people know, but then what? We don't want people leaving just aware and like, oh, well now I know, great. We want them to do something. We want them to take action. And so for that, we actually collaborate, if you could change slides, and partner with a number of different organizations to really educate and empower people to take action. So if you can go to the next slide, we have a space in our shop where oh, that's not the one I was thinking of, but that's okay. We have a space in our shop that has information about the different organizations we work with, how people can get in contact with them. We keep a calendar of all the anti-trafficking events that we know of so that people can learn about human trafficking in our shop and really jump right in to get involved in the fight. We think that it is vital to be working together. All of these people over here know that we can't do this by ourselves. I'm not gonna solve human trafficking with a coffee shop, let's be real. But I'm part of we're part of the solution, right? We're part of making this happen. We all have to work together. So that's the second part of our mission. The last part is providing. So we are investing in short and long-term aftercare programs for survivors. And this was really, when I started, this was like my heart behind A Second Cup, was I wanted to ensure that people had the tools to get back on their feet and rebuild their lives and become the people they were intended to be before they were trafficked. And so we do that in a couple of different ways. We support different organizations by providing our space rent-free to them to do awareness events, to do volunteer events, to do board meetings, whatever they want to do there. We provide our space for free. We sponsor their events. We provide coffee for their events. We have a split shop program where we're donating 50% of the proceeds to different organizations. But we also just recently, can you go to the next slide? Started a new program. And it's all based on this quote. So this is from one of the survivor leaders in our community who has since moved to Austin, and Austin is all the better for having her there. But she said the inability for a survivor to get a job is one of their largest barriers to recovering. So if you can imagine, somebody's coming out of this situation, they are traumatized, they're having to deal with all this trauma and heal, and then they can't get a job, and they can't support themselves. And they can't get an apartment because how are they going to pay for it? And so they get sucked back in because they don't have any options. And so we started a program called Brazen Table, if you can go to the next slide, and then the next one. It's a 5-month culinary training program where we teach survivors basic job skills like resume writing and interviewing skills and conflict management and how to, problem solve when your car breaks down and you can't get to work. Like what are some of the things that you can do to solve that problem and get to work and make sure you keep your job? But we really focus in on the culinary and hospitality side of things. We want to ensure that they have skills that are transferable, that they can get jobs to support themselves and become independent, thriving people in their communities. We really think that survivors can reclaim their lives, and we are just this small portion of helping them do it. If you can go to the next slide. Okay, so that's what we do. So what can you do? I think that every single person has something to give. And you don't have to do all of these things, but you can do something. And so the first one I would say is consume consciously. Make sure you know where your products are coming from. And you can start small. You don't have to throw out everything in your house and be like, I'm only buying fair trade everything. If it doesn't have a sticker, I'm not buying it. But you can start small. My husband and I started with chocolate. We really like chocolate. And we're like, okay, if we're gonna buy chocolate, it's gonna be fair trade. It's more expensive, but that's what we're committing to that. And so we started small, and then we grew, and then we said, okay, coffee, and now we're looking at clothes, and it's growing and growing. So you can start small and still be making a difference. You can give your time and money. I can guarantee you that there is no nonprofit that's working in this field that doesn't need your time and doesn't need your money. That is not, people think if I'm just giving my money, I'm not really doing anything. Yes, you are. We need that. We need that to do what we do. You can let us do the work that we already know how to do by giving us the resources to be able to do it. You can tell your friends about A Second Cup, about the organizations you're hearing about tonight. When I say tell your friends, I mean get on social media, follow us on social media, share the information that we have. By the way, A Second Cup is having a fundraiser on October 12th. You should all put it on your calendars, and you should like us on Facebook so we can tell you about it all the time. Share your ideas and skills. Again, nonprofits need this. We need your ideas. We need your specific skills. There are organizations who need attorneys, accountants, people that have business experience. We need all those things. So feel free to share your ideas with us and give freely of your time. The last thing I will say is use your vote to vote for people and policies that uphold the dignity of human life, regardless of the race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, the way that a person worships. They should all be dignified. And so ensuring that you are voting for people and policies that pour resources into under-resourced communities and that really ensure that people are getting what they need to not be vulnerable populations. I think that is my time, and so before they get the hook out, I am going to run. Thank you so much.